They
Yeah.
try to turn woke into a bad word. But
Mhm.
what does woke mean? Woke means awake. And consciousness is when
Right.
you're awake.
Mhm.
And so class consciousness is just adding to that awake, to being awake to the fact that the rich, we call them the rich, but what they really are is the owning class, the people who own all the companies and all the stocks and all the wealth in our country call all the shots.
Yeah.
And so that's what it means to be class conscious, is to see that. And then once you're aware of that, you can start to see how our class structure operates in this country, and how the working class, all the people like you and me who live off our paychecks, we don't live off of generational wealth. We
Right.
don't live off of stocks that our parents owned, or companies that our parents owned. That's
Mhm.
that's the owning class. We're the working class,
Right.
and we always get hosed by our government, by both parties. And so, I just wanted to find out, how do we start working against that? How do we start pushing back? How do we get a government that actually cares about us?
It's funny that you said that, and it was a good book. I skimmed through a lot of them before we had you on the show, and some of them I had already read. And
Nice.
I just really think that it's funny. Let's call it like this. We can look at other countries and see the caste systems and we can label them, but we fail to realize we're in the same situation. It's just called differently. And you named it
That's
that
right.
on the thing. I mean, you see how you should, every person should look at their lives and ask them, are you a puppet? Are you part of this system? Because if you go to work every day and you do the paycheck, you're part of what, Scott is actually talking about. But what I'm getting ready to ask Scott, and I know this is hypothetical, if the people that are woke sees this and have always seen, I'm going to be honest, I've seen it ever since I was a kid. I was just like you. I was like, something just ain't right. And I was in elementary school. I was like,
Yeah.
something just ain't right. I remember them telling my mom something's wrong with him. Wasn't nothing wrong with me. I just happened to realize that what you're talking about is shit. I'm just too young
Yeah.
for you to pay it any attention. But with
Yeah.
that said, and using that particular book by William, what do you think that people are not willing to see what's actually being taken place? And we'll use this as an example. We're talking about the hierarchies, the people that make the laws and people that control the money, the billionaires and so forth. There's not a lot of billionaires in this country. So that shows you another thing, that it's only a select few that's making policies. But with that said, let's just use what we talked about. Even something as far as a SNAP benefit program has now been pretty much dissolved. And people have yet to ask themselves, how did this happen? Who pulled the strings? And more importantly, the people that pull the strings don't give a fuck about you anyway, because you're part of that class conscious, and you got to ask yourself which one of them, which category you falling in, and that should explain to you why these things were being taken away. And my theory is you put it wasn't benefiting the hierarchies. They were spending money to keep you there. Now they was like, we're done with this. Now
Mhm.
you look at it and say, well, how is this going to affect the economy? They don't give a fuck whether it affects the economy. They want to know what you're going to do. Your survival instinct is going to make you steal, which is going to put you, which was one of the books we're going to talk about, which is going to keep the rich richer, is going to put you in jail. Whether
Yeah.
you black, whether you be Mexican, because you're going to do what it takes to feed your kid. And you can't go to court and go, well, Your Honor, they took away the benefits. Sorry, you broke the law. You stole. You're going to go to work again in the prison system. What's your take on that?
That's the story. That's the story of Les Mis, right? That's
Yeah,
Victor Hugo going back to the French Revolution. That's the same thing now. You steal a loaf of bread and you're in prison. And then you're a part of the slave system again, which
yeah,
never went away. It's part of the legal framework of the clause that they passed to end slavery, was to keep it in the prison system. And you talk about, what's happening now with all the private prisons and all the American corporations that are benefiting from almost free prison labor, slave labor. It's completely unconscionable. And then you add in ICE too. They're grabbing people off the street and then feeding them into this slave system, probably.